Hey gamers, this is Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire, and today I'm going to be reviewing Pandemic: Fall of Rome from Z-Man Games. Pandemic: Fall of Rome is a game that uses the pandemic system, but it's been rethemed so that instead of diseases, you have barbarian tribes who are approaching Rome and threatening the Roman Empire from all sides. And it is your job as one of the playable characters with special abilities to prevent that from happening. The win condition of the game is for players to essentially make peace with all 5 of the tribes. You can do that by either actually making an alliance or by completely eliminating all cubes of that tribe's color from the board. Good luck with that. Meanwhile, there's several ways to lose. Throughout the game, Rome is slowly going to decline, and if you decline all the way, you'll lose the game. If the barbarians manage to sack the city of Rome, you'll lose the game. If there are too many barbarians from one tribe on the board, you'll lose the game. And you know that when you need to put cubes of a certain color out on the board and you don't have enough left. At that point, you have lost. And the last way to lose is if it is your turn to draw cards and you can't because the deck has run out. Each player is represented by one of these pawns. We'll just put it here at Narbo for now. And turn structure is very simple. On your turn, you're going to do 4 actions. You're going to draw 2 player cards and resolve revolts, which we'll talk about just a bit more in a moment, and then you'll invade cities, which means that you're drawing from this barbarian deck to see where new enemies are going to spill onto the board. Your 4 actions on your turn can include movement, they can include battle, so if I were up here, I would want to have some legions with me, and then I'd be able to roll 1 die per legionary. There's a max of 3 dice. To see if I took out any bad guys. So in this case, I would have taken out 3 of the cubes of my choice, but 1 legionary would die. You can plot, which means that you exchange cards from your hand. Most of the cards in the game are these city cards, and you need to collect certain numbers of cards of each color in order to make alliances with the corresponding tribes. So for example, this is a black card for Tingi. I need 5 black cards total in my hand in order to make an alliance with this group, the gray barbarian group. Collecting cards can be a challenge because you do have a hand limit. So if you get too many cards, you're going to have to choose which ones to sacrifice, and everything hurts because you need cards either to make alliances, to travel, or to perform other effects in the game. Once you have enough cards, you're able to forge an alliance, which means that you can travel to where there are barbarians of the color you'd like to make an alliance with, and then spend the corresponding number of cards, so 3, 4, or 5. Once you've made alliances with barbarians, so let's say that we are friends with the orange group now, the Anglo-Saxons, you'll actually be able to convert some of these orange cubes into legionaries because an alliance allows you to turn enemies into friends. In addition to regular movement, you can spend cards to sail from port to port. You can fortify a city that you're in by spending a card that corresponds to that city to build a fort, and then that is how you recruit more legionaries onto the board. So if you want to increase your army, so if you want to increase your military might, you're going to need to go to a fort in order to recruit more guys. Taking legionaries with you is great, but also leaving them behind is great, because when you get to the step where you are resolving revolts or invading cities and putting enemies out on a map, if a legionary is present, they can be eliminated, but that also allows you to take out a cube and prevent that barbarian cube from being put on the board. In addition to city cards, you're going to get some event cards, which give you some very interesting powers in the game, and if you want to risk a little bit of Rome's decline, they can do a little bit more for you when played. So you'll have to decide if it's worth taking a little bit of a hit to your civilization in order to get a lot done on a given turn. Also, because this is Pandemic, you're also going to get revolt cards instead of outbreaks. And these cards will not only force you to put more barbarians on your map, but they're going to cause this meter to move, which decreases your ability to recruit allies and increases the number of barbarian cards that are going to be drawn. Also, just like Pandemic, if you have too many barbarians of one type that are in a specific area, adding another is going to cause essentially an outbreak where you will take a hit to your decline meter, and you're also going to have to add more cubes to the board, and things just get worse from there. The way the barbarians move is also quite interesting. So when you draw one of these cards, you'll get a color, you'll get a target city, and you'll also get a little pathway from which the barbarians emerge. So the Huns here are going to be moving towards Lutetia from their space, So essentially you can't just put a Hun here immediately. There's like a chain of supply. So here, if I wanted to put a Hun cube out, Carnuntum already has Huns, which means that I can put another one here at Uwawum, which is the next stop on the path. So paying attention to the pathways that the barbarians are slowly filling up is part of the strategy of the game. Pandemic Fall of Rome is fun for solo players because it essentially has two ways to play it solo. You can either just play it cooperatively the way that you would with anybody and control multiple characters, which basically means you'll control all of their hands and all of their special powers. And there's several cool characters to choose from who can do a lot of different things. Or you can play a solo mode that is specific to this game. To play the solo mode, first you have to remove the Mercator. So this is a card that I prefer to play with when I'm playing cooperatively because she gives you more flexibility when it comes to plotting and exchanging city cards, which really makes those alliances easier to seal. But in the solo game, you don't get to have your Mercator, but you do get to manage your hand in a more interesting way. So essentially you're controlling 3 of these remaining characters and performing your turns mostly as normal. But with your plot action, you can actually add cards to and remove them from a treasury that's off to the side of the board. So it gives you a way of storing city cards because you only have your one hand and there's no one to trade with or do hand management with. So what's nice about the solo mode is your game is mostly a normal game. So except that they did something to make the hand management aspect of the game better, and I actually like that. Instead of trying to handle 3 different hands and make sure nothing overflows, there's a treasury that I can work with. And then if you feel that you've mastered the game either cooperatively or in solo, there is an additional challenge called Roma Caput Mundi, which makes it so that Roman legions cannot enter into Rome, which actually historically was a thing. You weren't supposed to actually bring the military into Rome. But in a normal game of Pandemic Fall of Rome, you get a fort at Rome, you automatically get to recruit there, it's a hub for you. And it's also a place where you can exchange city cards of multiple colors, which makes it a pretty valuable spot on the map. Not being able to bring legions there does add a little bit of extra bite to the game. And that's Pandemic Fall of Rome. It's very much like a normal game of Pandemic if you've already played one, except that the way that the barbarians move is a bit different as they progress towards Rome. You have some battle dice, which add a little bit of extra randomness to outcomes. Of course, you get a nice ancient world vibe. I'll start by saying that Pandemic Fall of Rome is definitely my favorite Pandemic game. I don't usually consider myself a Pandemic person particularly, but Pandemic Fall of Rome is a staple for me at game nights, and it's a game that I'm pretty much always happy to play. I think some of the changes to the Pandemic system that Fall of Rome makes are very good. I really like the battle dice because they make you think twice before getting into a fight with barbarians for no good reason, given that you always have a risk of losing your legionaries. I like the way that the barbarians move because having them move along little trails towards the places that they are attempting to occupy adds an extra layer of strategy and positional awareness to the game, so that's something I really enjoy. And of course I enjoy the Roman theme. I would not call this game a great historical model by any stretch of the imagination, but it's got a little bit of a Roman vibe, and that makes it extra fun for me. I also really like the solo mode. I think what makes it work is that they kept all of the main elements of gameplay, but they made one big tweak that makes things work so much better for solo, which is the treasury. So instead of having to track all of those different hands of cards, you have basically a bank where you can stash and remove city cards as you need them without having to essentially negotiate with yourself while controlling multiple characters. I really like it when solo modes can do that, not necessarily be a totally separate game, but have one little tweak to the rules that just makes sense for solo, and I really appreciate that they added that in, especially because as a cooperative game, Pandemic Fall of Rome would have been soloable anyway, so it shows a nice bit of extra attention that they chose to add a solo mode anyway. There's only one thing that I really don't like about this game, and I mean, it's a Pandemic system game. I'm not sure it can be helped. I absolutely despise dealing with and collecting city cards. In the cooperative version of Pandemic Fall of Rome, you have to be in the same city as someone in order to trade them that city, unless you have the Mercator, and I think that is so tedious. And in solo, that's a little bit better actually, because you have the treasury where you can add and remove cards, but your ability to get cards is still based on your location on the map. And I just find that so irritating. And this is one of those things where this is my pet peeve in a game that I largely like. So I enjoy Pandemic Fall of Rome. I play it. I'm going to keep it in my collection for game night. I may take it out some to solo. I think it's perfectly good as a game, but just that one aspect of the game irritates me so much that this game is gonna be one that I respect and I like, but it's never gonna be my favorite. And for that reason, I give it a 7 out of 10 and a Dice Tower seal of approval. Happy gaming.